Hi, my name's Annie Looby. I'm one of the facilitators at the Hoffman Process in Australia, and this is my wonderful colleague, Julia Bodkin, who's a senior facilitator at the Hoffman Process. And we wanted to come on here today just to share with you a teaching around what we call on the Hoffman Process the dark side, or the inner critic. So what is the inner critic? What is the dark side, Julia?
Yeah, well, it's an aspect of the dark side. The dark side, I think, also has other aspects to it, but the critical aspect of the dark side, also known as the superego, got set up in us when we were young and learning how to be, basically. And we were listening to our parents telling us that we should do this or not do that, or be quiet, or be good, or be better. And then we internalize those voices, and it becomes our superego or inner critic that we become very identified with. And one of the first steps in dealing with this inner critic is to identify its voice and to actually separate it out from just feeling like it is us, and start to hear the messages that it's giving us to work harder, to do more, or after we've done something, telling us that we didn't do it well enough, that we did it wrong, that we should have done it better, berating, pushing. It can be more like the voice of the most critical parent.
Mine's
so that's the first
loud.
step. Is it?
Yes,
right now?
Well, maybe not quite right now, but certainly I'm very aware of it. And the more I do this kind of work, the more, my awareness grows around the messages that it tells me, like, eat less, exercise more, you should, you shouldn't. It's often got a really loud should or shouldn't voice.
Yes.
So one of the things that you can start, once you become aware of it, one of the things you can start to do when you catch it is to get curious about it. Initially, curiosity is a wonderful thing to bring to this inquiry. And when I hear myself, the harsh, punishing voice, I can start to actually create an internal boundary around it by just sort of going really clearly, back off. I'm not going to listen to that. And it's helpful to embody that, to actually quite clearly, I mean, maybe not when you're in public because you might look a bit weird, but, when you're at home alone, you become aware of this punishing voice, is to actually just go back off. I'm not allowed to swear on social media, but otherwise I would say, something else off. Just to really clearly draw that boundary and give yourself some agency around whether you choose to listen to that voice and to what extent it gets in the way of your ability to be present.
Yeah. And I think that's the first step, is to have that kind of energy towards it, because it's a very forceful energy.
And loud. Yeah. What else is important?
And I was going to mention another way to deal with it is also to keep building a kind of a sense of your own ground that is something other than that. And we work a lot at Hoffman and in the ongoing work with ways that you can use things like meditation and movement exercises and mindfulness to deepen your connection to who you actually are. That is someone who's grounded, someone who has a sense of confidence or sureness, and it's almost like a physiological sense of grounding, where the inner critic can't keep knocking you off center.
It's like an anchor, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, like an anchor. And as part of that, also a sort of a widening back to seeing the bigger picture, not taking things to be quite as important, because as we widen back, we start to see that, from a bigger perspective, that thing that we didn't do perfectly isn't such a big deal, and not so serious.
Yeah. And that's the other thing about that inner critic voice is it's bloody serious. It's like it's really heavy and serious. So another wonderful thing that you can do when you get this sense of trusting your own inner ground, inner authority, and you widen back, is to see how ridiculous this voice is, and to start to sort of play with it, or to get it, to hold it lightly. And a little funny thing we do on the process, which is great because it's a somatic experience, which means we're using our bodies as well. We call it the dark side fling. And what I love about it is that it is silly. And the dark side doesn't like silliness. So you imagine that this inner critic, this loud, awful voice is sort of sitting like on your left shoulder, and you grab yourself a piece of rope and you wrap the rope around the neck of that rotten, bloody voice, and then after 3, you count to 3 and you pull it out. 1, 2, 3, oh! And then you swing it around your head and you throw it. And it crashes. And there's something sort of so ridiculous and silly about it that you're using your intention, you're using your voice, you're using your sense of humor and your own agency to go, bugger off.
Yeah.
Enough with that.
Yeah. And it has to lose its grip after that, because it's really, it's a very serious entity that takes things very seriously. It's, it's got this idea that it's keeping us safe. So it's very kind of wedded to seriousness and doing things perfectly and well. And it's also a very harsh voice.
Yeah.
So another thing that's really lovely is to bring some self-compassion, and to, we would never talk to we'd never talk to other people with that same harshness that we talk to ourselves through the superego or through the inner critic. So to also see that, whoa, that is really harsh, and I don't want to be spoken to like that in this situation. And it's often in situations where we're scared or challenging or it's difficult. And that's the time where we need self-compassion. So that's something that's really beautiful to bring in the face of the inner critic, if it's launching itself into a full.
Yeah, I find it helpful to sort of then tune into the part of me that's going, ouch, like to that voice, that awful voice that's judging me and criticizing me, and then to sit with the part that kind of bears the brunt of that voice, and just bring a sense of kindness and tenderness to that part. And that also helps to shift it. And again, coming into your body, like using bringing your attention into your body at each of these points, whether it's the internal boundary or the groundedness or the all the playfulness, is to embody it.
Yes, and get a break from this internal critical dialogue.
Yeah. So we are doing a Hoffman weekend coming up the 12th and 13th of September on Zoom. Julie and I will be there. Yeah. So we're hoping to see as many of you there as possible. And we want a little shout out to our friends in Melbourne and being in lockdown, and to really invite you to resource yourselves.
We had intended to do this weekend in Melbourne.
Yeah, we were
so
going to do
I'm
it
very
in
much feeling,
Yeah, so we're really upset. We're disappointed about that. But if you're down there and you need support, then come and join us. Julia will be up there. And
please come and join us.
We're breaking borders here. So if you're in WA, come.
Singapore.
Singapore, absolutely. Come and join us.
Yeah, great, lovely. It would be lovely to see as many of you as possible.
Absolutely.